But now moving on to the first race for the Speedcar division, and the front row held there down by Graham Wassell and Rick Bates. Just waiting on Donald Mackay to move up into his starting position. Car number 5, John Church, Phil Chilton also there too at the tail of the field. But on the pole man, the pole position, Graham Wassell, car number 70. And on the second row there is Steve Brady and the defending Australian Speedcar Grand Prix winner, Ian Saville. And away they go in the first Speedcar race at the Sydney Showground for something like 12 years, as Rick Bates leads onto the back straightaway. Ian Saville there in second position. Bob Woods in the number 13 car. Oh, problems back there in the field for Barry Butterworth. And Barry Butterworth now gets hooked up once again as we see this enthralling battle for the race lead. Rick Bates leading, Ian Saville there in second position, and Steve Brady back in third. But Rick Bates doing a good job out in front. Brady coming through on the inside, followed by Michael Meyer, Bob Woods and Barry Butterworth. Barry Butterworth now looking for a ray around the outside of Bob Woods, and Steve Brady gets a little offline. This allows Michael Meyer to close that gap once again. But Rick Bates leading down onto the back straightaway in the famous Burgo colours, and of course there is a race company very synonymous with speedcar racing here at the Sydney Showground over many great years through the 50s and more so the 60s, of course. And Rick Bates leading. Ian Saville still there second. The running order remaining unchanged. Steve Brady followed by Bob Woods and Michael Meyer, and next one through is Barry Butterworth. Coming onto the main straightaway to complete another lap, Bob Woods there in car number 13, being chased hard by Steve Brady up a little high there. Just gets a little bit out of shape, and Bob Woods closes up once again. While all this is going on, of course, Rick Bates having a dream run out in front. Ian Saville a little high, and kisses the wall there, and one around sideways is Donald Mackay in car number 76. And of course the Mackay name, very famous in Sydney speedcar racing, and over the great years of the 60s, the famous Don Mackay Offenhouses were a household legend, I guess you could say, in speedcar racing around the Sydney Showgrounds, with the likes of Andy McGavin, of course, Jeff Freeman, Johnny Harvey, all drove for the famous Don Mackay race stable. And here's another generation of Mackays, young Donald Mackay, as we watch the field now just about set to go once again. Of course, the Mackay family, very, very famous here at the Sydney Showground, as the pace starts to quicken once again, coming off turn number 4 down the main straightaway. Still Rick Bates leading as the rest of the field streams through. There's Steve Brady now moving through into the lead, and Steve Brady, it looks like, going through into the front running at this stage. And Rick Bates in second spot, followed by Bob Woods, Michael Meyer and Barry Butterworth. Virtually, as I say, the running order remaining unchanged except for a position at the head of the field. And Steve Brady, and Brady's off onto the infield and right out of calculation after taking over the front running. Bad luck indeed for Steve Brady as the action continues. Rick Bates now inherits the lead once again. Rick Bates, the race leader. One slowing there looks like car number 97, Norm Jackson. He's out of contention, and Michael Meyer now warming to the task as he closes right up on Rick Bates down into the pit turn. Not too many more laps remaining in this opening heat for the speedcars. Rick Bates tailed out from Michael Meyer, and next one through is Barry Butterworth, who's done a fantastic job after having started from position number 9. Barry Butterworth up into third position. Ian Saville also there, and Mark Brown from Victoria driving car number 2. But Rick Bates coming off turn 4 and having certainly had plenty of pressure applied in this opening heat, and to his task has really stuck to his guns, has an advantage now, lining up into turn number 3 as the, problems there for, looks like John Church in car number 5, bringing on the yellow lights. Yellow flags also out, John Church. And as I understand it, this race now will be declared with Rick Bates taking the win from Michael Meyer second and Barry Butterworth third. Moving on now to heat number 2 for the Castrol Speedcar Grand Prix. And of course this race distance is 10 laps. So heat number 2 to be run over a distance of 10 laps, and on the pole position is second generation driver Stephen Graham. Outside front row, Howard Revell, and Howard Revell, a man with many years of racing experience here at the Sydney Showground. In fact, during the 1967-68 summer racing season here, came within a few points of taking up the Craven Fuller National Speedcar Drivers' Championship in a great battle with Johnny Stewart. So Howard Revell, a man well versed in speedcar competition around the Sydney Showground, as the lights turn to green and we're underway in heat number 2. And there's George Tatnell there. Also another starter in this race is Bob Holt. Next one through is Joe Ferrugia as they run down the back straightaway. Also Graham Parton there in car number 3. But here's your race leader, Stephen Graham. And down the main straightaway, having completed the first of 10 laps, Howard Revell there in second spot. They in turn were followed by George Tatnell, and the next one through is Bob Holt. George Tatnell holding a mid-track position there. Oh, Bob Holt gets a little out of shape. This allows Tatnell to skip clear. Next one through there in car number 21 is Joe Ferrugia, and the one after that looks like Kevin Cox. But this is where the interest is, at the front of the field, and Stephen Graham having to do a little bit of work there. Howard Revell not too far behind. Down onto the back straightaway, Howard Revell now working hard, working on Stephen Graham, but Stephen Graham holding a good line through the pit turn in that beautifully prepared number 14 race car. Also too, Howard Revell in a new car. He's only recently debuted on the racetrack, and in actual fact scored a main event win at the Wagga Speedway as the yellow flags come out once again. Problems somewhere around the racetrack, and yes, there it is, Kevin Cox in car number 29 in Bother, and bringing on the yellow lights and flags. Also too, Terry King involved. Just waiting on this resumption for heat number 2. Just about set to go. Once again, Stephen Graham to lead them away from Howard Revell, George Tatnell, Bob Holt, Joe Ferrugia. Looks like Ken Radcliffe, the next one through there. Lights turn to green once again, and Stephen Graham takes over the role as pacemaker. Still Howard Revell tucked away there in second spot. They in turn followed by George Tatnell, Bob Holt, Joe Ferrugia and Ken Radcliffe as the rest of the field streams through. Graham Parton goes via the grass. Also there too, Trevor Green, as Denise Jorgensen spins to the infield on the back straightaway. Of course, young lass Denise Jorgensen from the karting scene. Yellow flags out once again. And Denise having her first taste of speedcar competition here at the Sydney Showground. Now being pushed to the safety of the infield, and will obviously take no further part in this event. Just about set to go once again with a continuation of heat number 2. Still Stephen Graham, the pacemaker. Oh, and George Tatnell getting to get a little anxious there. George Tatnell over exuberant, shall we say, in his return to speedcar racing, but still Graham leading. Howard Revell down the through turn number 2 as the rest of the field comes through. Graham Parton there, and Trevor Green, the South Australian speedcar champion, well back in the field on this occasion. And Howard Revell driving a beautifully prepared car. As I said earlier, only just recently made its debut on the racetrack and scored a main event win at the Wagga Speedway. Ken Radcliffe there driving car number 54. But Stephen Graham driving for Lynx Engineering. Certainly, oh, and Howard Revell looks like struck trouble. Howard Revell, we just caught a glimpse of that car slowing, and it certainly did look like Howard Revell's car. We'll just try and pick this up now. Yes, it was indeed, and bad luck for Howard Revell. He's obviously struck some mechanical problem there with the car, out of contention after pressing Stephen Graham hard. But this will allow Stephen Graham with virtually what is now an unbeatable lead. Still Tatnell there in second position, and Bob Holt tailing out in third. Kevin Gormley there in car number 40 going through, but near the tail of the field. There's George Tatnell making his first return to, or making his return, I should say, to speedcar racing after an absence of many years, something like the 78-79 season, the last time he raced speedcars here at the Sydney Showground. Of course, as we know only too well, in the last 10 years or so, having concentrated completely on sprint car racing, George Tatnall, and a 2 times winner of the Winfield ASC Series. And making a reasonably good job of it too, as he holds down second position in speed car competition here at the Sydney Showground. Graham Parton there in car number 3 near the tail of the field. And there's the American entrant, Johnny Pearson, well back in this heat number 2, his first drive of the night. Ken Radcliffe in car 54, but Stephen Graham doing it ever so easily out in front. Just 1 lap remaining for Stephen Graham. Here's Ken Radcliffe trying to get through on the inside of Bob Holt, but couldn't do so, and Bob Holt still retains third position with something like only half a lap remaining down the back stretch. Stephen Graham now, there's Alan King on camera as Stephen Graham goes on to take the win. You'll find George Tatnall officially placed second, and coming in third was Bob Holt. So a good win going out to young Stephen Graham, George Tatnall second, and Bob Holt third.